Alright everybody, this is a sort of a quick how to use video of the microEnigma. It's a product I've been working on for about 7-8 months. I've been very fascinated with the Enigma and I really wanted to build my own version of it. So I'm going to kind of go through how everything works. If you have any questions, you can always just send me a message and ask me about it. I will have a manual for it eventually, but right now I've just not had the time to put it together yet. So let's go ahead and turn it on. Try to keep it still since the video is not mounted here. So okay, when you first turn it on, if you know anything about Enigma, you can see that it has the 4 indicator letters up in the upper left corner. I tried to position things just like you would on an Enigma. It has a real keyboard down at the bottom, has a lamp board made with LEDs in the center, and then up in the upper left it's got the indicator, and then it also has a power switch that turns it on and off. To make configuration easy, I chose a little joystick right here that you can use, and we'll get into how that works in just a minute. The standard machine it starts up with is an M4, which has four indicators, 4 rotors, and you can see those are right here. The way to start encrypting or decrypting, because it's a reciprocal machine, is just to type. And I'm going to go ahead and type in the word hello. So H, you see it lights the I, E lights the L, L lights the B, another L lights the D, and then O lights the A. So you can see that it works much like a real Enigma. As long as you hold the letter down, the lamp board will stay lit. You can see it rotating the indicator display, and you can actually turn that on or off, whether it animates. I'll press another letter here. You can watch the F roll into a G. If you prefer for it to not animate, then you can turn that off and it'll just instantly change to a G if you want. Now, one nice feature this has is that you can use the up to go back. So let's say I make a mistake and I want to go back, you can keep going back. Now I went all the way back to AAAA. If I try to go back one more, here it'll do a little buzz there. That's because when you're in a lever geared machine or a lever type mechanism, the double stepping makes it so that you can't always go back using an algorithm. So it keeps a buffer of 50. It remembers what your last 50 characters are, and when you're in a lever machine you can go back up to 50 and correct up to 50. Now in a gearbox mechanism it's always going to be perfect, so you can always go back. You can even go back before AAA and see what would have been before that. So that's only a limitation of the lever box or the lever type of machine. So the editing the indicator is very easy. You just press down on the joystick, see a little cursor show up, and you can change the indicator wheels to whatever you want. Like if I want to do Q, W, E, R, can change them. Use the center button to get out of it. You can also use the center button to the left and right of the joystick to correct just the one that you want to. Like if I want to go back to AAAA, go back and change that one to a Q, I can. So it's real easy to use, and that's one of the reasons why I went with a joystick. I wanted it to be very simple, so intuitive. The next thing I want to talk about is in the main machine, which is where we're at right now, the encryption and decryption mode. You can also change your view. Now, one view that we've already started with is the indicator view, and that's where you see the actual positions of the rotors. If I go left on the joystick, it's going to change me to the encryption view. Okay, now this is going to be basically the last 4 characters that you'd see on the lamp board. So if I type in hello again, H, E, L, L, O, you can see the encrypted letters in this view. Okay, now if you go to the next view, it's the plain text view, and you can see the last 4 letters of the word hello. And if you want to clear these so that whatever you typed is no longer on the screen, the down arrow will clear these buffers, but it only keeps the last 4 characters that are typed. So boom, gone. Now if I go left one more time, you can see this little arrow. This is the both view. So if I type in Q, you can see that Q was ciphered to F, W to Q, and so on. It basically shows you the plain text and the encrypted text, or vice versa, depending on whether you're encrypting or decrypting. So the left again, and I'm back to the indicator view. You'll also notice that while I hold the left, that the I is lit. That's telling me this is the indicator view. If I do it again, lamp board view, again, keyboard view, again, both view. You can see it lights up that letter to tell you, but you pretty quickly figure out what view you're in, so it's not too hard to do. So if this were a gearbox machine, there's one more view called the counter view, where it actually shows you the counter of the machine, just like those machines had. So I'll show you that in a little bit. So this is basically the main mode of the machine. Now everything that you'd want to do as far as encrypting or decrypting is in this, but let's go ahead and go into the menu system so that we can configure the machine to do all the different types of settings that we need to look at. So if you hit the right arrow on the joystick, it takes you to a menu, and notice you have MACH. That stands for machine. And if I go right again, it takes me in and I can see that I'm on the M4. And if I'm going to go ahead and just press the letter A, and I think that gets me to the top of the list. Yes, it does. This is, I think it's a Zalwork. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. A365 is what it's known as on cryptomuseum.com. If you start going down through this list, you can see all the different machines. Here's an Enigma D. Here's the Enigma G, and there's 3 different ones of those based on which one they found. You know, and it has the actual rotor settings of the machines based on their serial number. If you keep going down, there's the Enigma 1. There's the KD, M3, M4, N for the Norway, AR for the Railway, SWK for the Swiss K, T for the Tirpitz. Again, I'm not sure on the pronunciation, but those are all the machines that it supports. Now, one nice thing about the menus is that you don't have to use the up and down to get to them. If you know you want an M4, you can just press M, and it will jump to the first M. If you press it again, jumps to the second M. If you keep pressing, it'll go back and forth between them. But this way, if you know you want one of the gearbox models, you just hit G111, and we'll go ahead and pick this for now. Once you select the model, then you hit the center button to leave that. So we've selected the machine. Now if I go down, it's going to now let me choose the rotors for this machine. So if I center push that, it starts with what this machine had, and I believe this machine might have been one that only had a couple of rotor types with it. Let me see if it's, yeah, there's no rotor 3, there's only rotors 1, 2, and I think it's 5. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so you can pick the rotors and the order you want them in for the machine. In this case, I'm doing rotor 5, rotor 1, rotor 2. Hit the center button and I'm out of the rotor menu. So if I go down again, you can set the ring settings for these. So I can say I want UNAX for the ring settings. Now, if I go down again, I'm to this option called a knit. Now, if you choose a knit, it's going to take you back to the stock configuration, which on this device is an M4 with basic settings, and we'll go through that in a little bit too, but let me keep going down. CONF is configure. We'll go ahead and go in there and explore this. You have configure display, which lets you adjust the brightness of the display down to very dim, and I don't know how this will look on the video, but very bright. And then 3 I find is pretty good for this red display. I can also make these in green, so that my next one I put on eBay will probably be green. So that tells you the brightness of the display. Also the lamp board, you can adjust the brightness from, and I find 1 is pretty good, although it doesn't look like it's showing up on the video too well. It looks perfectly great in person, but if I do 7, it's much brighter if you want it to be super bright. It kind of depends on what your ambient lighting is. So the sound, you got some levels. You've got off if you don't want to hear anything, low, which is a little tick. I'll try to make you hear it here. Then high. I find that in this oak tray, high sounds the best. If it's out of the oak tray, you know, which I'm not sure how many of these I'll sell out of the oak tray, then low's plenty loud enough. So, but I'll leave it on high for now. Animation is what I talked about on that menu. If you want to see it animate, leave it on. If you want it off, you can turn it off. And that's the nice thing about this joystick, is that everything is easy to configure. There's no, you know, memorization as far as how to use it. For the most part, it's pretty simple. So, turn sets the type of what's the word I'm thinking of? Always forget it. Sets the type of notation for the turnover notches, whether it's indicator notation or notch notation. So those are your choices. Then you have language. It actually does English and I don't know how to pronounce this, Deutsch, I think, German. So you can set it to German if you want to as well. A friend of mine helped me do the German translations, which was really nice of him, so that was fantastic. Power lets you set the power settings. If you want to see what the battery voltage is right now, it's 4.2 volts. It also has a USB mini jack you can plug in on the bottom, which will work concurrently with the batteries. It doesn't charge batteries, it just uses alkalines, but you can run it off either power source. If you want to save your batteries, you can just plug it in for a while. Though it doesn't use a whole lot of power, which is nice. I think on a regular set of AA batteries it'll last 60 or 70 hours, so it should be pretty nice. So dim. After 10 minutes, if you're not using it, it'll dim the display to the minimum amount, which will save a lot of battery power. Off after 1 hour, and I think normally I set this to something longer than that. That may just be because I was playing around with it. But after 1 hour, it will go to its most minimal power state, which uses very, very little power. So the nice thing there is if it's battery powered and you leave it on, it'll shut itself off, and when you come back to it, it'll look like it's off, but you just press this joystick and it will wake back up, and won't kill your batteries that way, so it's kind of cool. So there's also test mode, where you can test the display, make sure all the segments light up, test the lamp board, make sure they all light up, test the sound, if you want to hear the sound, test, hold on, I left the wrong menu, test, so you got display, lamp, sound, keyboard. If you want to test the keyboard, as you press the letters, they all light up, showing you that they indeed do work. Okay. And you can test the joystick as well. Going left twice gets you out of that. It has a kind of a really cool Morse code function. If you want to do Morse code, you can type in, this is hello, and then you can play it back. If you hit the up arrow on the joystick, it lets you play it back. If you hit the down arrow, it will clear it, and you can start over with just maybe hi. Play that back. If you want to do multiple words, you can clear it again and do H-I, and then right arrow, and then T-H-E-R-E for hi there. And play that back with the word pause. So that's kind of a fun thing to play with. I think that's it for the test menu. All of the searching works in the menus too, so if I type TT to get to test instead of, it'll go to the turn option first and then test after that. I think that's it. Yep, that's it for the test menu, and that's it for the configuration menu, and then the only thing we're left with is the version 1.0 and serial number, and this happens to be serial number 3. So it kind of brings me to a discussion, which is that it takes quite a while for me to build these. So I'm not going to take orders for these. I'm going to build one as I have the time and then put it up on eBay, and that's just the method I'm going to do, because it probably takes me a good couple of hours to make the board, and another hour, 2 hours to make the tray, the oak tray that it sits in. So it takes me quite a bit of time. All of these parts are hand soldered into place. I like to build things by hand, and I like to know that they're done right. So that's just the way I do it, and it takes a lot of time. So that's going to be, I don't know how many of these will be produced, I guess. So if you're looking for something unique that it won't be mass produced, it's going to be built by hand. So this is sort of what it is. So let's go ahead and go back to the machine. I think I'm in the gearbox mode, so I can show off the counter now. Let me go back to that, and there it is. There's the counter. So if you type in, it still encrypts. You can see it doing its thing on this, but notice now that the counter is incrementing as well. And you can do the same thing with the counter if you want to change it to match a specific message that that you're working with. So like 2870, and you can see I've got the numbers on these keys as well, so that you can quick enter those as well. So, and with that you can go up or down. The nice thing about the gearbox machine is that you're not limited any longer to the last 50 characters, because it can go forward or backward without any problem. You notice too that a gearbox machine has a lot more turnover notches. As I start moving through this, you can see it really rotating those wheels, which was the idea. It just makes it so much harder for somebody who's attacking it to try to decrypt it. So you can see it's kind of moving forward. Now let's go ahead and turn off animation real quick too. So configuration, animation off, and you can see the difference. So That's the animation off. I kind of like the animation, so we'll turn it back on. Especially with the gearbox machines, because you can really, did I not do it? Configure animation on to the right view. There we go. There we go. So you can really see it moving those wheels as you do stuff, which is kind of cool. So now there's a few other things we haven't seen yet, which are in the machine configuration. I'm going to do an init, which clears the machine back to an M4, and you'll notice that the menus change. They show what options you have. On M4 has the ability, obviously you can always pick the machine, but now notice you got a new option for reflector, and you can pick B, C, or D, which is the rewirable D reflector, which is really a pretty cool thing. So let's go back to D, and if you choose D, then the next thing on the menu shows up is the reflector D, which this lets you actually set the reflector pairings, okay? And they start with the default set, which you can use, I think, let me change them here. If you use the up arrow, it sets the default. So what you can do, like in this case, J and Y are always taken. The lamp board is showing you what letters are available to you at this point, okay? J and Y were hardwired on the D reflector, so you can never use them. If I hit J, you can see what happens. You can't hit it. Now, in this first thing, the first two pair, or the first pair is A and Q. If I go to the right, you'll notice that those letters start showing up on the lamp board. The reason for this is that it's letting you know that to the left of the cursor, you've already used A and Q. So if I try to type A here, it won't let me do it. Now if I go back and I just want to do a silly kind of reflector pairing where A becomes B and C is reflected to D and E is F, you can see that it will let me do that. So you can go ahead and pick what pairs you want on a D reflector. And the brilliance of the D reflector was it greatly enhanced the security of the machine. You know, the sad thing was, well, I mean, not the sad thing in reality, but the sad thing for the cryptologist who designed it is that it was a pain to use in the real, because you would actually have to take it apart and unplug it and reconnect all of the wires by hand. So again, if you want to reset this to the normal default, you just hit the up arrow and it takes it right back to the default values. So if I go ahead and select the center button, I get out of it. If I go down, you got the rotors again, and with we're on the M4, you have up to 8, so you can choose whichever rotors you want. Same thing with the ring settings. Now in this machine, the reflector is fixed. I think, yeah, there's no ring setting for. Oh, it's because of the D. If I turned off the D reflector, when you put a D reflector in this machine, you don't have a leftmost one. But if let's say we go back to a C reflector. Now you can set the ring setting for that thin wheel. So the other thing that I want to show you here is that when you have the thin on an M4, if you have the thin one, you have the beta or the gamma. You can select that here. You can even hit the B at the bottom or the Y. And in fact, this brings up a good thing too, is that most menus you can use the joystick to do them, or if you want to do it faster, like if I want to say 3, 4, 1, you can just type it out, which can be a lot faster way of entering it as well. So the ring settings we talked about. The gap, now this is kind of a cool option too that they added but wasn't ever used. You can actually set where the gaps are on a gap filled wheel, I think they called it, or they might have had another name for it. When you go in here, you can say no, which means use the regular gaps on the wheel you've selected. So if you've selected wheel 3, it's going to use the gaps on that. However, if you want to override that, just set it to yes and start putting gaps where you want the gaps to be. So you can actually come in here and tell it, I want this for my gaps. Now this is where that notation option comes into play, because the notation you're using here is either going to be in indicator notation or it's going to be in actual notch notation of where the notch was on the wheel. So that's why that question is there in the configuration. So you can say for every one of these, I want to turn it on and set whatever they want to be. So now you can see that I've got all 3 wheels have a gap filled wheel, and they're all set to different settings. So go ahead and go down to the plug board. And the plug board, we all know what the plug board is. It lets you swap letters, which is kind of cool. So you can come in here and do JK, ED, LM, QY, and the same kind of deal. It shows you what plug combinations are already used. So if I try to type J now, it's not going to let me do it because I've already used it beforehand. Now if I go back to where the J was, change it to a V, and I can go back to the new pair and put in a J if I want to. So the cool thing about the lamp board, I try to use it to indicate where you are in the configuration to help you know, oh, I've already used that letter, so I can't use it again. So once you've got your pairs in here, and let me go ahead, I'm going to set up 10 pairs so that I can do the OR as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now I've got 10 pairs, okay? I'm going to go ahead and exit, and then go down and you get the UR option, which lets you set that, the UR clocks lets you set up to from 0 to I think 39. And this was a little box that they made that plugged into the plug board, but would scramble the swaps even in odd ways that you couldn't do with cables, which is kind of cool. So, and then we go down to a nit. So basically, depending on the machine you choose, it will present you the options that are valid for that machine. So you notice in the gearbox machine that didn't have a plug board, there was no plug board option. So I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. Let's see. Don't think I have. Let's go back to the init, clear that again, and one of my favorite, or at least what I used a lot during testing, was an M4 machine, and I did 3, 2, 1 for my thing. So if I go back to the machine here and I do A, it's going to be F T Z M G. So that's kind of cool because I use that a lot during testing to make sure that everything was working properly. I've tried to do everything I could to build this in a way that matches the actual hardware. So it emulates a bunch of different machines, and I've actually dug up code on the internet that was made on a real machine with a rewirable reflector and tested it against my code to make sure that everything was good. So it should be a pretty slick little device for anybody who is an Enigma fan, and I don't know how you can't be. I mean, you really have to admire the work that the people who created it went through to design something that's just very very ingenious, and you also have to appreciate the work that the people went through to break it. So fascinating machine, and this is my recreation of it. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.